So the 1980 Mr. Olympia. I remember walking into a gym in the fall of 1980, a brand new gym, one of the only ones around where I lived, and asking the guys at the front desk if they'd heard who'd won the Mr. Olympia that year. And they said, yeah, Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I said, no, I mean, this year, 1980. And they said, Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I said, what? And they said, yep, he showed up, he entered, he won. So this is the first issue of Muscle and Fitness that had coverage of the Mr. Olympia, of the 1980 Mr. Olympia. This is a February 1981 issue of Muscle and Fitness. And so here's Arnold's article, My Olympia Comeback, and there's some pictures from Conan the Barbarian, and there's a picture of Arnold in Sydney, standing near the harbor there in Sydney, Australia, and you can see the Sydney Opera House in the background, which is where the contest actually took place. And then this is a picture of the inside of the Sydney Opera House. And then, of course, there's Arnold with his arms raised in victory with Joe Weider. And, of course, the 1980 Mr. Olympia was perhaps the most controversial Mr. Olympia ever, with 1981 being maybe the second most controversial Mr. Olympia. So there's more pictures from outside and inside the venue. Here's a photograph here of from the back, but George Butler is taking a picture of Arnold from the front. Yes, that's George Butler, the co-author of Pumping Iron. And here's some contest photos, comparison shots, I guess, of the competitors, and you can see some comparisons with Boyarko, Arnold from the left. This is Roger Walker in the center, Roy Callender, and Mike Mentzer. And don't know what's going on here with Arnold talking to Roy Callender. It's no secret that back in the day, anyway, it was no secret that Mike Mentzer and Arnold had quite a rivalry going on. There was a lot of hostility between the two of them. This is a photograph of the entire lineup, obviously in the relaxed round comparison, the whole lineup. There's Tom Platz right here. There's Dennis Tenorino, Ken Waller. There's Arnold back here. So these are pictures of the individual posing routines. There's Danny Padilla and Boyarko. Here's a comparison of Arnold with Roger Walker and Mike Mentzer. And let's see, more of Boyarko. It's another comparison with Arnold and Frank Zane and Boyarko. Let's see, some more of Arnold, and then the relaxed round comparisons here in black and white. Here's again Roger Walker, these three pictures here. Roger Walker was obviously the local favorite because he is from Australia. And I'm not sure what part of Australia he's from, but it probably didn't matter because they had, a guy in the Mr. Olympia, and he was probably, I don't know what his body weight was, but probably the most massive guy on the stage, with Mike Mentzer being probably a close second to that. Here's some photographs of Mike Mentzer, and he was pretty good with that one. Mike Mentzer could also do the vacuum pose almost as well as as Frank Zane, believe it or not. I've seen some photographs of him doing that. Here's Frank Zane, Chris Dickerson, and Arnold. Arnold, Chris Dickerson, Frank Zane. There's Samir Banu. Here's some more comparing thighs. There's right next to each other is probably, again, the two most massive guys in the show, Roger Walker and Mike Mentzer, Dennis Tenorino on one side and Arnold on the other. And here's the reigning, at the time, the reigning champion was Frank Zane. He was going to try to make it number 4, but Arnold didn't let that happen. And there was some talk that Arnold did this to take a little bit of revenge out on Frank Zane as well. But mostly it was because he was training for Conan and was getting in really good shape, and he decided at the last minute, apparently, to enter. Here's Dennis Tenorino. Here's the one and only Tom Platz. And let's see, another relaxed comparison round between Arnold, Mike Mentzer, Frank Zane, and Dennis Tenorino. And let's see. Oh, Casey Viator. I forgot about him. He was also a very competitive bodybuilder back in the day, very massive. Also came in most contests in very cut shape. He was the kind of the spokes sort of bodybuilder for Nautilus. He was a student of Arthur Jones, who was the inventor of Nautilus, which back in the day, those were the machines at the gyms. And here's Boyarko, Arnold, and again, Roger Walker. Here is Roy Callender, Mike Mentzer. Here's Mike Mentzer, Frank Zane, and Chris Dickerson. And here's Ed Corney, who passed away, I guess, a couple of years ago, known as the master poser. And let's see, some more comparisons in black and white. Here's a color with the abdominals and thighs. Arnold's not in that particular one. He's off to the side probably somewhere. Here's another one where Arnold is there doing the abdominals and thighs. And so, of course, the controversy was that Arnold was not at his best and still won. And a lot of the guys boycotted the 81 Olympia because they were angry about the judge's decision in the 1980 Mr. Olympia. So that's obviously the pose down. Back then they stood in their assigned position and didn't walk around the stage like they do today, trying to get in front of each other. Some more pictures, some trophy awards. Arnold, of course, receiving his check, and then probably saying some words about, yeah, this is it. I retired. I came back from retiring. I'm never going to do it again. I've had enough. Of course, he said that in 1975, but he had to do it one more time. But that was to be it. 1980 was his very last and 7th Mr. Olympia. Here's a picture for an advertisement. But it's a picture of the 1980 Mr. Olympia. Boyarko, Arnold, Roger Walker. There's Frank Zane, Mike Mentzer, Chris Dickerson. There's Tom Platz in the background, wishing he was up there, I'm sure. But eventually he was, just never got first place. But then, to get a little bit into the sort of some of the controversial, the controversy that surrounded the 1980 Mr. Olympia and some sort of candid photographs. This is the October 1981 issue of Muscle and Fitness, where they revisit the 1980 Mr. Olympia with some more pictures, some of the same ones. So here it is, Mr. Olympia Revisited, and there's Arnold with his trophy, and Joe Weider shaking hands with Arnold here. And some more black and whites from the photographs. Here's Arnold raising his hands in victory during the pose down. Some comparisons of the backs. Here's from behind the competitors lineup here in the back. But these are the pictures right here. This is a meeting that they had before the contest, which they always have. They have a competitor and judges and officials meeting. And Arnold was the only competitor who didn't sign, I guess, a petition or whatever to have the I get they were debating about whether to bring to have either the under 200-pound and over 200-pound class like they always have had, or to just make it an open class. And Arnold was the only one that disagreed with all the rest of the bodybuilders on what to do about that. And so he got into kind of a heated debate. Here he is getting a little bit, in a debate with Boyer Coe. But eventually things got personal when Arnold told Mike Mentzer, who disagreed with Arnold, of course, he told Mike Mentzer that the reason he lost the 79 Mr. Olympia to Frank Zane is because he had a big stomach hanging out. And so this is the famous photograph of the two of them almost getting into a physical altercation. And there's Ben Weeder coming in, and he got between the two of them and kind of calmed everybody down. And then later, there was calmness was restored. But obviously, yes, this was the most controversial Mr. Olympia probably ever. And here's some candid photographs from in and around Sydney. Obviously, the competitors. And here's Tom Platz doing some leg extensions on a very old-style leg extension machine. Some more photographs in and around some hotel rooms and training. Arnold. Here's Arnold on the airplane, getting flying over there. Here's Arnold and Maria Shriver. She came with him, of course, to support him. But anyway, this article was quite entertaining. It's was written by Rick Wayne, who was a very good journalist in the bodybuilding world. He was a Mr. Universe champion himself. And in order to make bodybuilding interesting, since we didn't have, YouTube back then, you had writers who had the ability to take a subject like bodybuilding and turn it into an art form, the way they wrote about it. And Rick Wayne wrote a book called Muscle Wars, which we're going to look at in a later video. So I hope you enjoyed this one. This is probably a collector's edition of Muscle and Fitness, being as old as it is. It's not in perfect shape. I've had it a long time, obviously. But anyway, so hope you enjoyed the video.